Bryan Ewald here. This is the Uverbia from ScreaminFX. It's a 100% real spring reverb tank in a pedal. A big pedal, but a pedal nonetheless. This is handmade in Austin, Texas by ScreaminFX. Really, really cool sounding box. If you've ever played with real spring reverb, you know that even though there's a ton of great pedals on the market now, and super cool reverb pedals out there, nothing sounds like a real tank. You know, and the Fender reverb tanks that you used to put on top of your amp, those are super cool too. This is that and a whole lot more. It runs off a regular 9-volt negative tip adapter. You've got a dwell control, a reverb control, a dry-wet mix, a gain and a volume, and then this little snap control, which we'll talk about. When you engage the pedal, it lights up inside. It's got these like bluish LEDs inside that look really, really cool. And you can even kick it and make it shake like a reverb tank if you're ever playing Riders on the Storm or anything like that at a gig. So we're going to run it into the deluxe reverb. We will actually A/B it against the reverb tank in there and see how it stacks up. I'll tell you for a fact that even though they do sound different, this is a lot more versatile. That does one thing really well. It's really boingy and springy, and it gets surfy, but this does the surfy thing great, but it also does a whole lot more. You can get these big, lush, dark reverb trails that you can't get out of that. So the reverb control controls how much dry signal is driving the reverb itself, driving the reverb unit. Then you have a dry-wet control. It will do 100% wet. At the end of this video, there'll be a track that is just this thing cranked up. I'm actually using the ScreaminFX 1954 fuzz to drive the front end even more. Get some really cool, kind of weird, funky, haunting, effecty kind of sounds. So you can blend in dry to wet here. The more you crank that up and the dry signal goes down, the volume, your overall volume goes down. So you have a volume control to recover that. There is a gain knob which actually drives a solid state amplifier. He's designed with a tube-like breakup. So if the gain control is run down, you can run it nice and clean, but you can crank this gain control up. So you have a combination between your volume and your gain, so you can set it so the output is similar to unity gain from your input signal, or you can actually really crank it and drive an amp with it and drive the reverb into, you know, some cool little artifacts. So there's a lot you can do with that. This little snap control in the center is flat, but if you go to the left side, it boosts it across the whole frequency band, and to the right side boosts the treble, and you get that really nice spanky high end and chime and boinginess of the spring if you want. The higher the gain control is, the less of an effect the snap control has. One really cool thing you can do with this, and I'll demonstrate it, is driving the gain up and just turning all the way to dry, and you can actually use this as a low gain overdrive pedal too, and it sounds really great, or as a boost to push the front end of a tube amp. It will drive itself, and it will drive a tube amp even harder, depending on what amp you're using. I will say that, you know, switching the snap control, depending on where your gain is set up on a gig, you may have to adjust some levels. You can't just necessarily flip this and expect everything, your outputs, to be the same. So you have to tweak these a little bit. Same thing, if you want to make the wet and dry control, if you want to crank it up a little bit, you do have to adjust this to get your volumes evened out. But if you're putting something this big on your pedal board, doing a little twist of a knob when you change settings is not going to be a big concern for you. This one definitely is worth checking out if you're a reverb junkie. I don't know of many other things like this on the market. So if you want to stand out in the crowd of a whole bunch of reverb guys out there, this is a great place to look. So let's go through and listen to some of the stuff it can do. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually check out and see what the Uverbia sounds like next to a 1967 deluxe reverb tank. So here is the Verb a little more than halfway up on the deluxe. It's as you might expect it for the Fender. It's very boingy, and it's got that, you know, it sounds like the spring. Definitely it'll do the surfy thing well. It's pretty bright, so it's got to be on pretty low if you don't want that top end to jump out. So I found the Uverbia is a little darker, but probably in a good way. It's thicker. This is the Uverbia set at similar settings. Now with the snap control, we can brighten that up quite a bit, but it brightens up the guitar signal too. So there's a lot of different types of Verb effects you can get. You can get from like completely wet, very ghostly, effecty kind of stuff. You can drive the reverb to where it gets really kind of chaotic in a cool way. You can get this nice, long, warm, lush reverb. So I'll just go ahead and tweak some knobs and play a little bit. when you drive the gain and back the volume off, you can either use this to push the front end of a tube amp, or it will drive itself when you push the gain enough. So you can get like this nice warm kind of tube overdrive out of it. And that is whether or not you're using Verb. So here I have the Verb turned off. There's no Verb on the amp either, so I'll show you what it sounds like, just almost using it like you would a low gain boost or overdrive pedal. So here's with the pedal off. And with it on. And I just have the wet dry mix all the way down, but if I bring that in a little bit, I can get that same sound. I find that when the dwell control is all the way up, you get your brightest reverb. And as you back that down, you can get that really nice, lush, dark, warm reverb. So, you know, adjusting those to taste. Here's with the dwell control up and the reverb control turned down a little bit for a brighter verb. I'll let it go there. And here it is with the dwell control turned down a little bit and the verb turned back up. You can hear it's a lot darker. Really hear the snap control does a whole lot right there. Snap control to the other side. And in the middle. Here's what it sounds like 100% wet.